Hey Rebel Rousers, welcome back to Rebellion Reborn, a segment of Primatech Files. We're debuting a kind of new segment. I think we're just going to call it Rebellion Reborn Reviewed. We're just going to go and talk to people and see what they thought of Heroes Reborn thus far. So, I can welcome a man that I have been listening to for a while now. This is, to quote a wrestling term, I'm marking out, bro. Nate Milton, welcome.
What's going on, Brother Ricky? It is a pleasure to be on the show, man.
It's a pleasure to have you on, sir. Let's get right into it. How long have how far did you get into the original Heroes?
That's a loaded question when it comes to the world of Heroes, because some would say too long, but I have definitely been watching since day one. Back in 2006, I think it was September. Of 2006, when the first episode came out, I was hooked, and I just thought that this was a show that was very imaginative and had a lot of potential. And one of the things that I really loved about the show was that it was very multicultural, which is a big deal for me, whether we're talking about television shows or whether we're talking about wrestling or whether we're talking about sports. I like the idea of inclusion. And so with Heroes, just out the gate, we've got white dudes, black dudes, Asian dudes, Haitians. I don't know why I turned Renee into Hero's cousin right there. But, it was so multicultural. And I really dug that because, for me, a lot of network television was still in that mode of Friends back in the 90s, where the show takes place in arguably the most multicultural city on the planet. And every other episode, you might get a person of color. So for Heroes to be that diverse, it really hooked me. I like the idea of a superhero show being on television because back in 2006, it was still a relatively novel concept. And so I stuck with it. I stuck with it through the writer's strike. I stuck with it through Siler's heel and babyface turns, to use more wrestling terminology. I even stuck with it all the way to the bitter end with the carnival. And so, I've seen the ups and downs of this program, but I still enjoy the show. And I was really thrilled when I heard that they were going to bring it back.
I think the good thing about Heroes is also the kind of multiculturalness. I also like the fact that they kind of don't bring it up. It's not a thing, especially in Heroes Reborn. You've got an interracial couple, and it's not like, it's look at them. It's because they've got other things to kind of worry about at this point in time. So yeah. So a lot of people will always say that season 1 is their favorite season, which is fair enough. I can see why. What is your favorite season apart from season 1?
I mean, obviously season 1 is the quote unquote best season because I think it was the only season that was probably Krang's vision from beginning to end. Because once you get to season 2, we've got the writer's strike and they're trying to play catch up. And I don't think they ever really regained their footing from that initial season. But in terms of another season that I think, if it doesn't come close to that level of greatness, at least it came close to that level of enjoyability as a viewer. I'd say Reborn is close to that. But in terms of the original series, I really liked, I want to say season 3 with the whole Fugitives arc with Danko and Siler and the president who, again, multicultural. Shout out to President Worf. I dug that. But I think one of my favorite moments in terms of Heroes history is from the episode Into Asylum from season 3. And it's we've got all these disparate heroes. We've got Claire and Nathan Petrelli in Mexico. We've got Peter Petrelli and Mama Petrelli on the run in New York City, hiding from people. We've got Noah Bennett, who has this uneasy alliance with Danko, this dude that he doesn't trust. And then at the end of the episode, we see, spoiler alert, at the end of the episode, we see Danko and Siler team up. We see Claire and Nathan, after having this falling out, have this really cool reunion, and they're like, okay, we got to go back and set things right. We see Peter and Mama Petrelli coming out of this church, and the rain is falling, and we're hearing the animals. We got to get out of this place. And I'm like, yes, this is something that's leading up to something that's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see the on-screen battle, but I do think that season 3 was probably closest to Krang's original vision than any other season.
yeah, we never got to see pretty much an on-screen battle, did we? We were always clamoring for that kind of big, massive like melee between all the fighters, and all we got was like punching and kicking every now and then. Yeah,
I need a hero whose ability is to open doors when they get because I want to see Nathan solid fight. Like, why are we watching this behind closed doors?
Exactly. I actually think Fugitives is one of my favorite seasons. Like going back on it, season 1 is all well and good, but I rewatched it over the summer and it doesn't half drag after a while. And the thing is with volume 4, or which is Fugitives, it's really concise and really to the point. And even I think the biggest thing is Claire is even more bearable in it. Like she got on my nerves as the seasons went on. So yeah, I was happy when she died. Oh no, I'm only joking. Please no hate. Anyway, so in our 100th episode, you sent us a little bit of an audio, and you said your favorite character was Hiro.
Yes.
How comes?
Because I think that, Hiro is, and I think Kring said it when you guys had the chance to speak to him. Hiro is kind of the everyman character. He's the conduit for the audience. I think that, everybody would like to say that they would be the virtuous hero like Peter Petrelli.
Yeah.
I think some people would like to be the villain like Siler, but most of us are just, people trying to live our lives. And I think that's why I liked Hiro, because so many of the people with abilities in those early seasons were so downtrodden and so angry and so, stressed with these powers. Whereas Hiro was like, okay, at first you could see he's like, what is this? How do I do this? But then you see him start to grow and start to evolve with his powers. And we get that iconic scene when he shows up in Times Square in New York City and yata. And it's like, I'd like to think that most of us would be like Hiro. We'd try to find a way to live with our powers, try to find a way to have fun with our powers, and maybe use our abilities to help other people. And so for me, Hiro is just a great character in terms of what's written on the page. And then you add that level of Masaoka's ability to portray the character. And to me, that just takes it over the top, because even as we saw when Masi came back for Heroes Reborn, like there's just something about him when he's done well and when he's not being written to act like an 8-year-old that just makes Hiro Nakamura so likable.
I think we were all looking forward to that kind of quote-unquote future hero that we were all expecting to happen from season 1. And it was a nice little kind of end to kind of his story. Hopefully, him and Harris kind of work things out, and, they're both chilling, But yeah, I also think that if you're a comic book fan and you got powers, you would act exactly like Hiro. No one who is a comic book fan, or I don't think anyone in the world will be all emo about having powers. They would secretly enjoy it to begin with, and then
that's the one thing I like. I love Milo, but I think that the character of Peter Petrelli was so frustrating to me because he would alternate between I'm gonna be a hero to I'm gonna be a good brother to why am I cursed with these powers, and then he leaves his girlfriend trapped in the future. Like, come on, Peter Petrelli. So I think that I like some of the nuances with the different characters. Like after Hiro, Nathan Petrelli would probably be one of my favorite characters because Nathan felt very real too, in the sense that he is a government official, and what would a government official do realizing that he has these powers? He'd protect his family, but he'd also think, okay, what does this mean for my city? What does this mean for the country? And even though he turned out to be quote unquote kind of a villain later on, especially in the Fugitives arc. Yeah. You could understand the motivation behind the character. And then that's why I think the characters that work the best with this show and with any show are characters who you can understand why they do the things that they do. And I think that a lot of times the problem with Peter is that he was just so all over the place that it made it hard to connect with the character.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, it was during my rewatch, and I was just like, wait a minute, I used to hate Nathan, but he is actually the best character on this show, apart from Hiro. Yeah, I really liked him, and I think also the fact that, it was his political power that was his power, not his flight. I really kind of enjoyed that aspect of it as well. Let's go on to all the extra content. Were you that big of a fan that you were seeking out all the kind of extra content that came with the original kind of Heroes Prime show?
Not on the first run, not during the first initial season. I got into it a little bit later. As I mentioned on the comment on episode 100, the first Heroes podcast I listened to was 10th Wonder.
Yeah.
And I think I picked that up around in the interim between season 1 and season 2 is when I discovered 10th Wonder.
Mm.
And so, we had all this time in between the seasons to kind of wait and anticipate. And so that's when I got into the, secondary content, when I got into the online stuff, when I got into the books, when I got into the podcast, and I think that, that was right around the time when the DVD for season 1 came out too.
Mm.
So I had a chance to go back and rewatch the episodes along with the reviews and along with the extra content, and got into it that way. But during the first run, no, I was just kind of strictly somebody that showed up and watched it week to week. But I think that in its way, Heroes was really ahead of its time, because nowadays that's how everybody watches TV. Well, not everybody, but most people watch TV with some kind of second screen experience or extra content experience, whereas back in 06, it was still kind of a foreign concept to a lot of people.
I think Lost kind of started it to begin with, but Heroes kind of took the ball and just ran with it, and that it became a way of them telling extra stories on top, and I think that was great. It took me a while to get into the extra content, just in fact of just trying to find most of it, and it wasn't until I started doing actual research into the show that I started picking all that up. But I actually quite enjoyed some of the extra content.
And to me, that's kind of the best thing about Heroes is that, not only the old Heroes, but now Heroes Reborn it's kind of a choose your own adventure show.
Yeah.
If you just want to be somebody that watches the show every Thursday night, you can still enjoy it. But there's also other levels if you want to get deeper into the quote unquote world, the universe of Heroes, and it just adds an extra layer of content. And so I think that it's a great idea. I don't think that it's always been executed the best way. Shout out to who was the hero that they had people create online? The guy, the soccer playing guy.
I can't remember his name, but it was for Hero's Destiny.
That wasn't it was a good idea in concept, but in execution, it really wasn't that great. But I think that just the fact that they were going for all these other avenues that you can enhance your viewing of the show, I think that was a cool thing.
Yeah, there was also, they were going to come up with Heroes Origins, which was quite a, I don't know what the word, it was quite, not revolutionary, but, they were essentially doing a choose your favorite hero. They were going to do 6 episodes each, directed and written by someone. And at the end of it, you'd be like, okay, who do you want to see more of? I thought that would have been a great, little extra piece of content I think they were going to do it for the hiatus. Yeah.
So was that the project that Kevin Smith was attached to?
Definitely. Yeah.
Oh, that would have been so great.
I've tried on numerous occasions to I've tweeted at him and I've gone to a couple of shows, but never have I heard his answer to what he would have done with Heroes. So yeah, I'm sure it would have involved a store and hanging outside of one. But let's move on.
That would be the new company. The new company is just Jay and Silent Bob.
Just standing outside Primatech. Let's move on. What is your favorite all-time episode?
Oh, man. I mean, it's going to sound cliche, but I don't think you can go wrong with Company Man.
Yeah.
To me, that is kind of the quintessential Heroes episode. There's other episodes that I really enjoy. Like I said, Into Asylum was a really good one. I actually like How to Stop an Exploding Man.
Yeah. Apart from the ending, yeah.
Yeah, apart from the ending, I really like the part where Peter's like, you got to kill me. And then Nathan Petrelli was such a great character, shows up and he's like, there's another way, Pete. And I loved how we always called him Pete. It made the character seem so much more relatable and genuine. But Company Man, to me, is not only the best episode of Heroes to date, it's probably one of my favorite hours of TV. Because it was a character study in Noah Bennett, who, again, played flawlessly by Jack Coleman. Yeah. And I just love the kind of levels that we go through with the character, from first kind of, and it's also great to see George Takei, which I love. That was the thing I loved about season 1 of Heroes, maybe more so than any of the other seasons, just kind of the actors that they cast that, on one level, if you're just new to the show and you're a little bit younger, you don't catch it. But if you're a little bit older, you're like, oh man, that's Shaft. Oh man, that's Sulu. It's all these great little throw-ins. But I think that, we see Noah's progression and how he gets to the point where he is now. And I love that scene where he's on the bridge and you could tell he goes through every range of emotion. He's a protective of his daughter. He's emotional knowing that he's not going to see her again, or at least that's what he believes at the time. But he's also calculating. He's also the chess master that we know Noah Bennett is when he's like, Renee, shoot me here so you won't kill me, and go deep enough to take whatever memories I have of Claire so they can't get to her. And it's just a really well done scene that everybody played their parts well. And, I think that for anybody that is kind of new to Heroes, coming on board in 2015 with Heroes Reborn, and they're like, I don't know what the buzz was about the original series, I would say, go back and watch that one episode. And if you're not a fan of the show in general, you'll at least be a fan of the stories that Tim Kring was trying to tell.
Yeah, definitely. I think if there's 3 episodes that you have to watch before watching Heroes Reborn, is the pilot, Company Man, and also I think 5 Years Gone is very important as well, especially to all those people who are like, why is Parkman such a dick? Well, just watch 5 Years Gone and you'll know why. He was always kind of destined to be a dick. So yeah. What did you think about them bringing back the show? Did you think it was a good idea?
I mean, I'm not going to say whether I think it was a good idea or not, because I don't, even though I'm a broadcaster, I still don't know how the economics of television work. And the ratings, ratings are an antiquated way of calculating, the worth of and value of a show. But so I don't know if it was a good idea or not, but I was definitely amped on it. I was like, okay, because I think that Heroes deserved some closure. And I guess we'll talk later on if we think that this is going to come back and what we'd like to see if it comes back. Yeah. But let's say that this miniseries is all we get. I think at least we leave now in a better place than we did at the end of the original run, where we've got Claire standing up after jumping off the Ferris wheel. I'm Claire Bennett, and this is a temp number. I don't know how many times this is. Like, that was a great line, but overall, that last season just left such a bad taste in the mouth of anybody that was not only a fan of the show, but somebody that rode for the show, and somebody that really was down on social media and was campaigning and championing the show. It's like, it's hard to hype up something when we've got Samuel and these idiots at the carnival, and we've got God bless her, I'm sure she's a wonderful actress, but every time the girl that played the cello came on the screen, I was like, come on, like we go, like I get the reaction to her the way a lot of people now get the reaction to when Joanne shows up.
Oh yeah,
and I'm like, come on, man, we stuck in this whole story about Peter Petrelli and the cello girl. So even if this is it, and this is all we get come January, and that's it for Heroes Forevermore, I think that we're in a better place because there are some threads that needed to be connected, some stories that need to be closed. And like we said with Hiro earlier, if that's the last we see of Masi playing this character, I think it was a really cool, nostalgic, fitting way to end Hiro's arc, finally becoming that hero that he always dreamed about and read about in the comics.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of like how they ended the show because it left it open-ended, and it's still, it's created Heroes Reborn, which is, even though they're essentially kind of the same guys at the helm, it feels like a completely different show just from the context of how it's, kind of the context of the world that it's in. And none of that is like more prevalent than just the character of HRG. And I think I've said it before, in seasons 1 to 4, you've kind of got HRG, who's kind of the man with the plan. Whereas in Heroes Reborn, you've got this guy who's kind of on the back foot for most of it. Just like, what was the plan? Did I come up with the plan? Oh, wait, now I've got the plan. Now let's get on. Let's get back to me being badass. So yeah.
Right.
Let's talk about Heroes Reborn. What do you think? Like, there is a lot of things that people on the social media have gone back and forth about, Evernow, kind of Matt Parkman being evil, Joanne being a big sticking point for some people for some reason. Which is your personal kind of sticking point to the show?
To me, I think that, for social media and for people, that are having complaints about the show, and granted, the show's not perfect. I hear you and Lilith talk about it every week. So we know that the show is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think it's a really solid show. I think that, a lot of times the older we get, the more nostalgic we get, and the more we tend to idolize and lionize things. And like you said, going back and watching season 1 in 2015, it's still solid, it's still good, but it dragged at a lot of parts. And so I think that, anybody that's like, oh man, this is never going to be as good as season 1, maybe not, but it doesn't have to be. It's its own entity. And like you said, I love the tonal shift with the show. whereas, it seems much more focused, which is funny to say in a show that has time travel and people powers and multiple Heresy. Like it seems much more focused than, let's just say season 2 through 4 of the original show. And I think that I like it. I think that it's popcorn television, which to me is what Heroes has always been. It's disposable, but at the same time, it's engaging. So, like we were saying with the extra content, you can get as deep as you want with Heroes. Yeah. You can just enjoy it on an entertainment level week to week, or you can dig a little deeper. Now I'm having flashbacks of Mama Petrelli. You want answers? You gotta start digging. Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. But I think that the good thing about Heroes Reborn is it's familiar enough to anybody that watched the old show, but you don't necessarily need to have been a fan of the original Heroes to get into this. And I think that, Harris is probably one of my favorite new characters. I think just the way that his power set, but also the way that he's portrayed, it's just a fun character. I love Ren. Obviously there's the tie to Ando from the original series, but I think you need a character like that. You need a happy sidekick that is totally devoted to the hero's foolish quest. And I think Ren plays that role excellently. I think that, you've got a lot of things that I think they've got the best of what made Heroes great without some of the fat, some of the excess that kind of bogged the show down. It's a much leaner show than the original show. We've got a certain amount of characters, and while there's twists and turns, you don't get I think part of the issue with the original Heroes is after season 3, sometimes, you get so bogged down with continuity. Yeah. And who's connected to who, and what did they do, and then why is this person here, and what was that thing Mohinder just said? I don't know. I didn't catch it. But this show feels very, very portable, very digestible, and I like it. I hope it comes back, but if it doesn't, I think that they've kind of, if not resuscitated the Heroes brand, they've certainly, done right by it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's funny how everyone's like, towards the beginning of the show, they literally kind of forgotten how Tim kind of tells these stories, and it's, they give you little breadcrumbs the whole way through, and it's not till like later on in the season when you're like, oh wait, this connected to here, and it's one of those shows that you can, on rewatches, you can see all those kind of breadcrumbs being placed all the way along. I really love that, and but let's forget about how you totally avoided the point about, what storyline or character you didn't like about it. So,
but no, see, here's the thing. Like, I've enjoyed most of the show. Like, there's been very few things that I haven't liked. I think there's things that could have been done better. Yeah. Like, I think the Carlos storyline, like, it was treading water for a few episodes there in the middle. Yeah. I don't think Carlos really picked back up until, we got to Sunstone Manor. Yeah. And then we sort of got more of the backstory with Carlos. I think that, and let's go ahead and talk about Joanne, because I think that, obviously she is one of the most controversial characters on the new series. Yeah. I think that I didn't necessarily like Joanne the character at first, although, obviously from my feedback to episode 100, I love me some Judy Ciccone. But I think that both her and Luke were kind of, we didn't really get them until we got the flashback episode. Yeah. And I think that really crystallized who these people were. And I think that Joanne as a character now, she's not perfect by any stretch, but I think her actions and her motivations make sense now. Now that we've seen, the loss of her son, and then, her killing Iceman, in at first in defense of Luke, but then we see that moment where that's her life mission now. So I think that if there was anything I could point to and say, man, I really don't like about the Heroes Reborn series thus far, man, I don't know. I think that maybe it's Erica. Ooh. Because I think that while, her portrayal of the character is great, I think that, we need more backstory on Erica. And obviously, we're going to get that come the new episodes. But I think that up to this point, we probably should have known more about who Erica Kravitz is. Because, she's this villain. But, and I think you and Lilith have said, she's almost like this cartoonish villain right now. Yeah. Particularly in that episode where she was cutting up Bambi. It's like she's twirling the mustache, even though, she doesn't have a mustache. But it's like I would love to see more about Erica. Why? I'd love to see more of, again, like we said with Nathan Petrelli, the motivations and how she got to be this person. So from that standpoint, that's probably my only gripe thus far is the villain does not seem like we've got the threat out there, which is the Healy, but the villain does not seem to be that much of a threat right now because it's like, come on, man, like Haitian, Hiro, any of you could go in and end this whole Renata's plot right quick, fast, in a hurry. But so I'm hoping when we get to her episode, we get these questions that I'm looking for because I think that she's got the potential to be a really interesting character, given her connection with Noah in the past. But right now, we really don't get that. She's kind of a one-note villain right now.
Yeah, as long as it's not like, she was spurned by an Evo, I'll be fine.
Or even worse, she was spurned by Noah.
Exactly.
Erica, I'm a married woman. I'm not going to do this.
Oh, man. I think me and Lilith talked about this back in the day. Like, when Rio was first cast, we were like, it's going to be a love interest, isn't it? And we were like, she was like, no, it's not. And I was like, oh, yeah, it is. So hopefully, we'll see. So, yeah, Noah's basically at fault, is what you're saying, which is fine.
But which Noah is the question?
Oh, good question. Also, I think you're right about the Carlos thing as well. He felt very meandering towards the end, towards the beginning and middle, and I think you're exactly right. It's as soon as Sunstone Manor came and we found out. I think, as bad as it sounds, I think it's his relationship to Farah which kind of brought him up in my estimations, and I also like the fact that it's like he's trying to prove himself for a girl. I like that they kind of twisted that kind of male-female dynamic, if you get what I'm saying, with them. So yeah, we'll see more about that in the coming episodes.
And it just makes everything come into full view because, when we first meet Carlos, he's the guy talking to the students and he's drinking.
Yeah.
And he's sleeping with the teacher and the janitor. And so, we're like, okay, how do we, like that initial introduction to Carlos, I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then we go through all the El Vengador stuff, which, I no disrespect to Father Maurizio, who I think I love that character, and I wish we'd have gotten more of Father Maurizio, to be honest with you. But all of that El Vengador stuff and dealing with Deering, it just seemed to meander until we got these two. Maybe that's the only thing they needed was a road trip.
Yeah.
Once we got those two in the car heading to Sunstone Manor, Carlos became a much more interesting character.
Oh, after the rapey road trip, sorry, yeah. But no, I completely agree. I did like the El Vengador stuff. I like the fact that, we finally in a kind of Heroes universe, we've finally got like a costume superhero. I'm not counting the Crimson Lightning from season 4 or the volume 4 that Ando was meant to be. But yeah, I really liked the fact that we finally got a costume superhero. So yeah, I'm also looking forward to like a super team up. Like, I think that's been something that's kind of been in the back of my mind, that kind of X-Men kind of team up. And, we kind of got it in season 1 a little bit, but it wasn't really much. It was just Peter and everyone was backing him up. I'm looking forward to like kind of all of them coming together and forming a super team. So yeah. What's your favourite episode been apart from June 13th part 1 and 2? Because that's an easy answer.
Yeah, June 13th part 2 to me is one of my favorite Heroes episodes ever, just because of the Hiro Nakamura story, and then just like it just makes you love Hiro even that much more. It's like, yeah, this dude, he did the right thing by this kid, and he had this family. But in terms of the other episodes, man, I think that the premiere was a big shock to me. Just from I think I tweeted it out, because Jimmy Jean-Louis was doing a lot of promotion for the show. So you thought he was going to be one of the central characters.
Oh, yeah.
And then they killed my man in the first episode. I'm just like, they killed the Haitian.
I know, right?
and I was like, wow, that's okay. Tim Kring is not screwing around. So I thought that just the way they started was really cool. Another episode that I really enjoyed in this new series of Heroes Reborn would probably have to be when the episodes that kind of centered on Miko. Because I know Miko's character is a little bit, on that divisive side, especially when they do the Evernow stuff.
Yes.
But I love the episode, I believe it's Game Over. Yeah. When we get, the backstory and she has to fight evil Miko and sacrifices herself. And I just think that her portrayal of that character plus the combination with her and Ren was really cool. And so I love the addition of Miko. Like after Harris, she might be my favorite new character, and that's why Game Over is probably after the June 13th, Game Over is probably my favorite start to finish episode because we get Harris, we get Miko and Ren, we get HRG and Quentin, we get the Freddy Cat reunion,
Yeah.
and at the end of the show, we get Hiro, and he just pulls the little thing out of the back of his neck, and he's like, okay, let's do this. And I'm like, yeah, that to me was kind of when the season kicked into high gear. And I don't think it's any coincidence that the tempo picked up once some of the older cast members started reappearing. Because I think that, again, Tim Kring with the breadcrumbs, the first few episodes, we were establishing this new world, this quote unquote brave new world. But then, once we get to Game Over, we get our first big confrontation of the season. And then we get the return of Hiro. And then I pretty much liked every episode. Not that I didn't like the episodes before Game Over, but after Game Over, I really enjoyed the episodes because it felt like we had forward momentum.
Yeah, definitely. You brought up one of my favorite characters in Quentin. When I first saw him, that he was cast, I was pretty sure he was going to be the comedic sidekick. I was really looking forward to kind of him and HRG kind of teaming up because we kind of heard that through the little rumblings of like the synopsis of the episodes. What do you think of Quentin? And what do you think of the evil turn, I guess?
I think, first of all, I think Henry Zebrowski is phenomenal. I think he's just a funny dude, and anybody that's seen him, whether it's the show on Adult Swim or A to Z, which I actually like that show. I thought that show didn't get a fair shake. I thought he was great on that show, and then obviously, him tweeting, like one of the highlights of the season was him tweeting from the great beyond. Like this guy gets social media. He has a great sense of humor. And so, I've actually watched the Dark Matters before Heroes Reborn premiered. This, unlike the initial run of the show where I, really didn't watch sort of the complimentary material, I actually made a point to watch Dark Matters, and I think that the character of Quentin was so well established, and it made sense, and I loved the scene in the laundromat where he meets Micah, and then all of a sudden, the jig is up, you got to get out of here. So I thought that the character it's a welcome addition to the show because he speaks to kind of I don't want to get too highfalutin when it comes to a superhero TV show, but he really kind of captures the zeitgeist of 2015, where he's the guy online with all these conspiracy theories, and you don't know the real truth, brother. And I love when he's trying to convince Noah that this is what's really going down. And I think that they made a fantastic pairing. And I think the character of Quentin is one that the show needed. To be honest with you, we needed somebody that was connected to the Evos, obviously with his sister, but somebody that was kind of an outsider like us.
Yeah.
And so I think that the portrayal of the character was good. When he made that turn, again, going back to the wrestling terminology, when Quentin had his big heel turn, I was like, wow. Like, I didn't know if Zebrowski could pull it off, but I think he's got the right amount of evil, quote unquote, compiled with also, he's still Quentin Frady. He's still the same guy. Like when the episode when he tried to kill Tommy in the hospital bathroom, like you could still see traits of the old Quentin in there. Like he's doing this because he has to. He's doing this for his sister. He's got a reason behind what he's doing, and I think that as we saw in Sunday Bloody Sunday when they went to the future, and we start to see Quentin questioning things and having that talk with Phoebe. We start to see that Quentin, much like hashtag evil Matt Parkman, is a bad guy by definition, but he's doing this for the right reasons. And so I'll be interested to see what they do with Quentin these last 3 episodes. But I definitely think that Quentin in general and Henry Zebrowski's portrayal in particular has been a breath of fresh air for Heroes Reborn. It's added some levity to the show, and I think that part of the issue with the original run of Heroes, as much as I loved it, is that sometimes it got too serious, got too self-important, and having a character like Quentin allows you to kind of poke holes and poke fun at yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's that kind of, I kind of want to say hero character, and that's hero with an I. He's that kind of character that was needed for the show, and he's kind of the comedic sidekick, but also at the same time, like, he's not exactly like Hero. Do you know what I'm saying? He's got that kind of that unique spin on him, and that kind of conspiracy theorist kind of aspect really shines through, because you obviously know he has his own, like, he's basically him, he's playing himself. We're going to talk about, I was going to do this in like wrestling terms, but I'm going to do this in sports terms. So Heroes is kind of like an aging team. So who would you say is the kind of franchise player from the original series?
Okay, that's a really good question. As not only as a wrestling podcaster, but as a sports podcaster as well. I'm very familiar with the vernacular of sports, and so I think when it comes to Heroes, I'm going to make a distinction. I'm gonna give myself some wiggle room, because that's my ability. I know how to play some nuances, so I can have room to move in these conversations. But I think the franchise player from maybe Tim Kring and also NBC's perspective is different than my franchise player. Yeah. I think if you're looking at it from the creator's perspective, it's probably, Peter Petrelli, Siler, Claire. Those are the franchise players of this franchise, this product known as Heroes. But for me, it's two people. It's Hiro Nakamura and it's HRG.
Yeah.
To me, they are the heart and soul of the show. And you can't have Heroes. I mean, you can, but it's not the same without Masaoka or Jack Coleman, which is why I felt it was so ridiculous when they did the tease a couple of weeks ago. One of your favorite heroes might die. I'm like, NBC, you are not that stupid. You are not that dumb to let this happen. If they come back for more seasons, HRG eventually might die.
Yeah. But
it's not going to happen in this miniseries. Yeah. So I think that HRG to me is kind of, he's our conduit from a analytical perspective. And Hiro is kind of our conduit to the universe through a heart and emotion perspective. And I think that both of those guys, to me, are the franchise players of Heroes.
So they're essentially the Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen of the show, yeah?
Yeah, you can't have
one without the other. Yeah,
one without the other. I think that, and that's why it was so great when Hiro came back, because obviously these guys are friends throughout their travels in this crazy universe, but they go about their business in two different ways.
Yeah,
even Future Hero, as kind of hardcore as Future Hero is, he still has that kind of internal moral compass, and that kind of childlike enthusiasm that HRG will never have, because that's not who he is. And I think, but the two of them together, that they kind of are the engine of the show.
Yeah, definitely. I think like people might have missed like little bits and pieces of like past Hero kind of showing up in this kind of Future Hero moment. And just like him walking through the bookshelf and going, oh, like Harry Potter. I was like, oh, genius.
And my favorite moment, that's a great one. And my favorite moment of Hero's latest arc on Heroes Reborn is that moment where he's fighting the Harrises.
Yes.
And he freezes time. And you see just not only the way that his power has evolved and the mastery of his power, but we get that moment when he comes back and he's like, too many butterflies.
And he's just
done, it's like, it's just a great character moment for Hiro Nakamura. It's like, like this guy to me is, obviously they can't have Masi on all the time, but if the show progresses and gets additional seasons or another run, I think, I hope that they find a way, even if it's a flashback, to have Masi show up in one or two episodes.
Definitely. I think everyone will want that. Well, they'll want that, and they'll also want Siler and Peter Petrelli to come back. That's not going to happen. Anyway, let's talk about who do you think the next franchise player is going to be and who they have to kind of pass the torch to. This is John Cena. Who is John Cena going to pass the belt on to? So, yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I think Heroes, hopefully they won't have as difficult a time finding a successor as WWE has, or to use sports terminology, the LA Lakers, who are going to be facing that pretty soon when Kobe retires at the end of the season. I think that this is twofold, because if let's say they get another run.
Yeah.
Obviously you want to have Jack Coleman be a part of the series, but eventually he's going to have to either take a step back or they're going to get rid of the character altogether. And so looking at it from the characters that we have now in Heroes Reborn, who would I like to see kind of take that mantle up? Honestly, I have to go with Luke and Zachary Levi, because I think that if you're going to have somebody take that mantle up, obviously Tommy's got the torch passed from Hiro Nakamura.
Yeah.
He's got, or Nathan, whatever you want to call him. He's got that connection. But for HRG, who for most of the run has been our entryway into the series because he's a guy without powers, but he's living in this world of people with powers. And I think that you need a character like that to be the audience's conduit. And I think that not only does Luke make the best choice because he's somebody that from a character standpoint wants to atone. And what better way to atone than to be the guy that helps Evos now?
Yeah.
But also, I think that, Zachary Levi is just a great actor. And I think that he's just now kind of getting a feel for the Luke character.
Definitely, yeah.
And I would hate to see this be the end of him. So if there were going to be a character from Heroes Reborn to kind of carry the Heroes mantle on for another series, I'd probably like to see Luke. Obviously, I want to see some of the other characters show up from time to time, but in terms of your main character, your protagonist, I'd go with Luke.
Okay, cool. We're talking about what would happen if there's going to be a second season, and we've interviewed Tim, and he said, he'd want to carry it on as Heroes Reborn was. So essentially, a brand new story with like couple of characters just like flitting their way in and out. Which characters would you bring forth to another season if we got a season 2?
Okay, see, here's the thing. Okay, and I hope you got yourself buckled in because I'm about to get a little crazy here. You mentioned X-Men earlier.
Yes.
And one of my favorite X-Men comic books back in the day was a book called X Factor.
Yes.
And basically the premise for those that aren't familiar with it is the original X-Men, Cyclops, Beast, Iceman, Angel, I think Jean Grey was in there with them. They were posing as mutant hunters because they were in a world where human beings did not like the mutants. Yes. And much like Heroes, we're now in a world where human beings are scared of Evos, like that scene we saw with Melina.
Yes.
She just saved these people's lives, and they want to kill her. So, obviously people are irrational right now. And so with X Factor, you had these original X-Men posing as mutant hunters, but really they were trying to find the mutants so they could help them. And that's kind of what I would like to see in a new season of Heroes.
Okay.
I think, and hear me out. We know that Mama Petrelli has connections with the government. I would like to see almost an inversion on the Fugitives arc, where with Fugitives, we saw Nathan start a program with the government and with Danko to hunt down Evos. I'd like to see, maybe Mama Petrelli and Noah get with the government, maybe have President Worf show up. I'm sure he's not the president now, but ex-President Worf still has some stroke in Washington, and set up like a little company, if you will. And, almost do sort of an X-File-ish type of thing where every week, we get a different Evo of the week.
Yeah.
And, each story is self-contained, but we also get little breadcrumbs that kind of lead to a bigger picture. And for the purposes of this story, I'd love to see Luke kind of step into the shoes of Noah. Maybe at first they're partners or something, but then eventually Luke is the main guy who's out there finding these Evos, helping them out. And, I'd love to see Carlos, and as much as it surprises me because I did not like the Carlos character for much of this run. I think Carlos, now that he's got a purpose, now that he's reconnected with Farah, is a character that could do you could tell some interesting stories with in a new season of Heroes. Obviously, you got to bring back the Haitian.
Yeah.
Because I think that he might be my favorite hero, not named Hiro Nakamura or Nathan Petrelli, just because the portrayal of the character by Jimmy John Louis, but also he's the toughest dude named Renee I know. Like every time he shows up, you're like, oh, something serious is about to happen because the Haitian showed up. But yeah, I'd like to see sort of and I hate to use the comparison because it's going to sound derivative, but do you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah.
I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a fun little show, and I like how we've got this scaled down, stripped down version of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Coulson and, about 5 or 6 agents that and they're going out there on missions. I'd love to see maybe a hero spin on that where HRG is kind of the point man, and he's got operatives, maybe it's Luke and maybe it's Carlos and Farah and the Haitian. Maybe Micah's a part of it. And that's the team that's going out trying to help Evos in this age where the public sentiment is so turned against the Evos. So that's a long way around the bend, but that's kind of where I'd like to see Heroes go if they get a chance to come back for another season.
Yeah, definitely. I think they didn't hint at it, but they kind of did hint at, HRG, like kind of going back to his roots in like the original Heroes with that kid Jermaine Greer, the one who could like heal and kill people. Like, you know, he had all these kind of specials or evos that he thought he was helping, but he wasn't. He was essentially just bagging and tagging them and throwing them back out into the wilderness. So you've got this list of people that he could go back and be like, so whatever happened to this person that I bagged and tagged one time? Oh, well, they're not doing too good. Let's see if we can kind of rehabilitate them or, you know, get them back into society, like a normal person of society. You know, they kind of had that going on at one point until they killed off the kid because, you know, small town America. I've kind of been thinking about this while you were talking, but I was thinking of maybe season 2 would... I've always wanted to know more about the founders and kind of how they got together. So I'd really like there to be a kind of founders kind of season where you kind of get, you know, you still kind of get the old characters, but you know, they're just recast. Like I can imagine the girl who played Angela Petrelli coming back and now playing Angela Petrelli like age 25, and you can get the same with, you know, the old Charles DeVoe. You can get him back. Yeah. And I think one of those and like how the company was formed would be a really good storyline.
That might have been one of on the download. Like you just jogged my memory, Ricky. Yeah. Like that might have been one of my favorite later season Heroes episodes.
1961, yeah.
Yeah, when they went back and you had young DeVoe and young Linderman.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that'd be a really cool concept. Just as long as we stay away from crazy sister who
Alice, yeah.
Like that to me, and I love Heroes, I love Tim Crane, but that to me was just one of the worst. Just no, I can't deal with it. Crazy weather lady.
Another kind of season that I would have liked to have seen is the kind of in-between years of, you know, Heroes and Heroes Reborn. Not obviously, you know, June 13th, but I want to see everything in between that. So the Renatas buying the company and, you know, Noah going back to work for the company. Or, you know, kind of, you know, within the background, there's always like Claire, because, you know, it wouldn't be a season without a reference to Claire. But also, I'd like to see the kind of the putting of a pedestal on Evos and, you know, they become celebrities. And I think it would be a really good kind of allegory to like today's kind of celebrity culture. And it's very simple. A bad guy is just a crazy stalker. And it's simple, but, you know, I think in Heroes Reborn, in one of the Dark Matters episodes, they just mentioned offhandedly, oh, they had an Evo on The Tonight Show who could boil a cup of water with his hand or something like that. And I think, you know, something like that, you know, you can have a reality TV show type thing. That was an idea I was playing around with, but, you know, who am I to say anything? Cause...
That's not a bad idea, because I think that they've left themselves enough space to explore these things, and even if they didn't dedicate a full season, you could do a couple episodes about him, because like one of the things, and again, we're getting back to Carlos. So Carlos, to me, like that whole Gutierrez family backstory, I think would make for a fun episode, especially, you know, you and I being wrestling fans and the history of the original El Vengador. Like, I think it'd be really cool if, you know, they got like a Rey Mysterio or a Chavo Guerrero for an episode to play that character. And we just kind of get the history of the Gutierrez family and also, you know, how Father Maurizio plays into that. Because I think he is an actor that, and I'm blanking on his name.
Carlos La Camara.
Okay, well he's doing a fantastic job. Like I think the way he plays the character in present day, like when he showed up and rescued Carlos from that scene where he tried to spy on Dirty Deering, like just the kind of he plays the character so well, and I'd like to see a little bit more of his backstory and just kind of how he, obviously, you know, the books are out there, but I'd love to see it on TV, just kind of the exploration of this family and just kind of take this family and use them as a snapshot for what a lot of families around the country were going through with the, you know, the whole Evo thing. Yeah. And I think that time period is rife with ideas for, if not a full season of stories, at least, you know, one or two stories here or there.
Definitely. The Haitian / Renee. How did you feel when he finally got a name and it felt really throwaway, right? Is it just me?
Was it Angela that said it?
No, I think it was Claire. She was like, come on, Renee, let's go. And I was like, what?
Yes. Because that was in the college season.
Yeah.
When again, another arc that had potential, but the less said about Claire Bennett the college years, the better. But yeah, just come on, Renee. Let's go. Like, Renee.
Yeah, I know, right?
everybody collectively looked at their TV screen at the same time, like Renee.
Yeah.
That to me, that's why he's one of the most interesting characters. And even though they've done a lot with him, I think there's still a lot more stories they could tell because we had the thing with his brother Baron Samedi.
Yeah.
We had the thing where he works for the company, but at the same time he's kind of a free agent. We see his loyalties lie and his loyalties to the Bennett family and to the Petrelli family. And it's like, man, I would love to see you talk about stories that we could tell for the past year in between the events that took place. I'd like to see what was going down with him and that setup he had in the eye center.
Oh, the HeroTruther thing. It's blatantly, yeah.
I would love to see just a couple of episodes dedicated to him and Micah and the girl with the Viewmaster eyes and Shapeshifter Man. But I'd love to see a Heroes Truther a couple of episodes and tell us how they got together and how Micah made the transition from this young man who wanted to be a hero in the original series, going back to him and Monica.
Yeah.
To this guy that is now actively doing good things for the Evos. I'd love to see that transition.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really weird to say this, but, eventually if we get Micah and the Haitian in the same scene, it's going to be the first time that we've actually seen them on screen together.
That'd be a great little introduction. It's like, hi, Micah, nice to meet you. I'm Renee. Like, okay, that's cool. With it.
The final 3 episodes, what, if any, theories do you have about what's going to happen?
Oh, see, here's where the kind of practical me meets up with the me that is just enjoying this ride. Like, if I'm thinking about it from a practical standpoint, I'm thinking about maybe almost a tie-in to wrestling. I'm thinking about the behind-the-scenes stuff, maybe even more so than what we see on TV.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking, like, I wonder how much Tim Kring knows about the future of the show. Because if he's getting hints and breadcrumbs from NBC that this is it, that, after January, there's no more, then I would like to see a satisfying conclusion.
Yes. Yeah, that's why this kind of break feels really weird. Not just because, they ended it on a really weird episode to kind of leave it, but it also feels like, well, we've got 3 episodes coming up. We'll see how that first rating does, but it also kind of gives them enough time to kind of tack on an ending at the end of it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because obviously, they know that they've got a beginning, middle, and end. If, the network are just like, you know what? Your ratings are decent enough. We'll give you another miniseries. They've got enough time in these kind of coming month to kind of tack on something, get reshoots done, and add something to the end. Like, some guy coming on and goes, I'm Claire's baby daddy. I want to see my kids. And that's, oh my God, that's the 2nd season. But no one really cares. Let's be honest, no one really cares about that. But sorry, yeah.
But see, and I think that's probably the outcome that's most likely to happen in terms of if I was to put money on what the future of the show is going to be. I think the ratings haven't been great, obviously, but they've been solid. 3 million people a week is nothing to sneeze at in this day and age. So I think that they've done enough to get another miniseries next year. But I don't know if they've done enough to get a full season renewal. A full series renewal, excuse me. So I think we'll probably get another one of these 13-episode runs next year.
I also think that kind of 13-episode run is a great little number because Zachary Levi in his interviews was just like, I didn't want to commit to like a full year of making something, but these 13 episodes is kind of, I can kind of do this and do other side projects at the same time. I think you can get a kind of bigger caliber of actor or someone a bit more known to kind of join your show if you're like, well, we're going to be 13 episodes, so, it's only going to take 6 months of your life as opposed to a full year. But
and it allows you to bring back, some of the old characters that are doing new things now, like Masi, or Greg Grunberg. It allows them to spend a week doing this, and that's it. They're done for this season. So I think that would probably be the best option. But let's say that this is it. Let's say that they're not coming back. So what I would want is a satisfying conclusion. And to me, a satisfying conclusion is something that everything doesn't have to be tied up neatly in a bow, but your main stories do, in terms of the threat has to be taken care of. We have to have that moment where, the family reunion, if you will, with Noah and Nathan and Melina and maybe even Mama Petrelli.
Oh man, definitely.
You got to have that family moment to kind of connect those ties. Maybe, and here's maybe this is crazy, but maybe that moment occurs at the gravesite of Hiro Nakamura.
Oof.
Oh, and everybody in the audience just got chills.
How dare you say such a thing?
Everybody caught the feels off of that one. But I think that I would love to see a satisfying conclusion, but I would also like to see potential stories that are started.
Yeah.
Like maybe at the end of this, let's say the heroes have saved the day and Noah finally has a grudging amount of respect for Luke because Luke helped them out. And Noah, finally shakes his hand and he's like, I don't approve of your past life, but you have an opportunity now to make a difference. Mm. And Luke goes away, and whether we get renewed or not, we know Luke's on a better path.
Yeah. And
it makes sense if they come back and we see Luke in the new series. But if that doesn't happen, that story's concluded. That story's wrapped up. And we know Luke is on a better path and Joanne is somewhere riding around in Cadillacs chasing. But yeah, I think that, man, more than anything, I just want closure because these types of shows are a rare commodity. And when I say that, I mean that, there's no guarantee when it comes to network television these days.
Yeah.
Look at a show like The Player, which came out and got, similar hype to Heroes. And Wesley Snipes did a great job in that show, but that show was done. That show was gone. It's not coming back because you have to sustain the ratings by this, again, antiquated rating system. So I think that, we're in an age where people consume TV in a different way. Netflix obviously is one of the big things nowadays. And one of my favorite shows was Daredevil.
Yeah.
On Netflix. And I think that that's a new horizon, a new frontier, a brave new world, if you will, that TV is heading towards. So, yeah, these last 3 episodes, they need to answer some questions. I'm really looking forward to the Erica episode. Because like I said, she, to me, is still the biggest question mark out there. Like, how did you become this person? How did you become someone who was willing to even sacrifice your own children to accomplish this goal, to accomplish this mean? So I want to see that. I want to see the Frady Cats have a happy ending.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
I want to see a happy ending for Quentin and Phoebe. Here's the thing I really want to see. Going back to all of the other Heroes seasons beforehand, I think the Haitian has only been a major part of a big series finale or season finale once. And that was when Papa Petrelli got shot. But other than that, arguably the most powerful hero is always absent. So I'd like to see Renee be involved with this HeroTruther group, and I'd like to see Renee be an active part of saving the day rather than some guy that just shows up mysteriously and leaves some information about how you can save the day.
How did you feel about him coming back? Like, not just coming back to the show, but like coming back alive, basically.
I was gonna say, are you talking about initially? Because initially I was amped because to me I think he's one of the most compelling and interesting characters that Heroes has ever had, and even when I talk to friends now that used to watch Heroes and fell out of love with it somewhere along the way, and they're like, so is Heroes Reborn any good? I'm like, yeah, it's a solid show. And they're like, well, who's on it from the old show? And I'm like, of course you got Noah and Hiro came back and the Haitians on there. And everybody I talk to, pretty much 9 out of 10 of them will be like, the Haitian's back? So like the Haitian was a character that certainly resonated with people. So I think that him showing up was great, but then, like I said, man, when they killed him off in the first episode, I was like, "Come on, man!" I was like,
"Why are you gonna go?"
And I didn't think he was coming back. Like, honestly, I did not see that coming. And obviously, in hindsight, it makes sense with the way everything lined up. And instead of going to Renee, he went to Caspar.
Yeah.
Get his memories wiped. It makes sense. But when he showed back up, I was like, okay, this will be cool. Unfortunately, the downside was Caspar had to die because that was a character I was really starting to like. I was really starting to get into. Again, when I first started watching Heroes Reborn, I had no idea who Caspar was, what side was he on. But the flashback when just that one scene with him and Noah, and it's like, remember that time in Tupelo or wherever it was? I was like, oh, this guy's good.
Yeah, I know.
And so I think that just that chemistry. So I was definitely hyped to see Renee show back up alive, and I can't wait to see them rescue Micah because that's another thing I want to see at the end of the show. I want to see Micah get some revenge because the Micah that we saw on the last episode, all drugged up and out of his mind, like that's not the Micah Sanders we want to see.
I liked Caspar as well. I think his scene with Noah, there was a lot of things that was said that just were layered and so much things you could pick up without them actually having to say anything. Like the fact that, they worked together for 4.5 years and you're like, oh, wait, this makes sense because obviously the Haitians left. So, of course, Noah would have one of us, one of them, and it would be another memory wiper. And, I really love that idea. Yeah, and Micah. We got to get Micah back. He went to the gym and everything. He got bulked up for this role, didn't he? So, yeah.
That's Micah's superpower, leg day. It's like, what? You don't lift, bro?
How did you feel about them bringing back Molly, but as a different as a different actress?
Obviously, I would have liked it to be the same actress.
Yeah.
But I didn't have as big a problem with that as if they would have recast Micah.
Yeah.
Because I think, Noah Gray Cabby has obviously done a little bit more work than the girl that played Molly.
Yeah.
He's a little bit more recognizable. And so I think if they had switched Micah and put, let's just say, Jaden Smith as Micah.
No, why would you say
I'd be like, come on, man. But I think that, the girl that played Molly this time around, she did a good job.
Yeah.
Like I could see kind of hints of the little girl character from the original series, but especially in the scene where she was talking with Mohinder in June 13th, Part 1.
Yeah.
I thought that she did a good job with the character, and that scene where she killed herself was one of the, again, this series, unlike the previous series, they seem to be going for it with the deaths. Now, granted, all of them don't stick.
I know it's a big thing. Like, I remember when we were rewatching, I was like, they kill a lot of people off, but they always bring them back. And then I was like, I hope they kind of make some of these deaths stick. And then, the Haitian died, he came back. Henry Zebrowski, Quentin died, and he came back. I wasn't too bad about that one. I wanted him to come back. But yeah, they kind of just left Molly out on the side, and Caspar as well, man. Come on.
So yeah, Molly and Caspar and maybe Hiro. So like those are three pretty significant deaths.
Whoa. Hiro didn't die. We never saw it like a bullet hole or anything like that. So he's still alive in canon, in my eyes. So yeah.
Speaking of which, the scene I had in my mind, and then this is going back to kind of throwing out our ideas of what we'd like to see in a new season or a new miniseries. Okay. Like just in my mind, like a fanboyish fan service type of shot is they're at the White House and you got Mama Petrelli, you got ex-President Worf, whoever the new president is, and you got Noah, and they're talking, and there's an Evo crisis in Tokyo, and we need to get over there. Do you have anybody over there that can help out? And Noah's like, I might know a guy. And the next thing you see, we cut to Yamagato Industries, and Ando picks up the phone. I'm like,
gets on the Ando bike.
like there's so much potential for storytelling, with characters like, and I know that was a big deal when Heroes Reborn was announced that is Siler coming back, is Clara coming back, is Peter coming back. I haven't missed them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I don't think as much as I liked Hayden and Milo and Zach, yeah, like we got two Zachs.
Yeah,
I think that they weren't necessary to this new series, especially because while they would have brought back some good feelings, they would have also brought back a lot of baggage and a lot of cluttered, convoluted stories that we didn't need in this new series.
But also, I think, they had their time. Like, the first, every season was basically about them. Like, most of Claire's storylines, it was, about her. And the only thing, that I think was keeping people around for Heroes Reborn was, even though Claire isn't in the, Hayden isn't in the show, the first 10 episodes she's been a character, just kind of offset, you know what I'm saying? So come on, guys. Okay, so you know what, we could carry on going on for ages, couldn't we? So I'm going to invite you back onto the show once the show's done, and then we can really talk about what we think is going to happen next, or what we want to happen next, or just commiserate that it's not coming back.
We'll have our moment around the bonfire, like that one episode where they thought Siler was dead, but spoiler alert, he was really Nathan Petrelli, and they're all standing around the bonfire and okay, so I guess this is it.
Or it could just be 10 minutes of us shouting no because they closed the door on another fight. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Nate. Do you want to shout out your Twitter and anything else you want to plug?
Sure. Again, thanks for having me on, Brother Ricky. It was a pleasure. Like I said, on episode 100, I've recently discovered this show probably want to say probably about 3 months ago,
Okay.
leading on the run up to Heroes Reborn,
Hmm.
because I was looking for as much Heroes content as I could find, and I found you guys. And I'm like, they've got a really cool take on it, and you're able to talk to some really cool people. So yeah, between you and Tenth Wonder, you
Yeah.
are my go-to sources for Heroes news and information and theory crafting. But in terms of where you can find me, if you've enjoyed me and Rick talking this week, you can find me on Twitter in the number 8 MOZAIK, Nate Mosaic on Twitter. You can hear more of me talking on various shows. I am on the Fight Network, live audio wrestling. We've got a podcast called Keep It 100 with myself and former WWE writer Brian Mann. And each week we kind of talk about different topics in the world of pro wrestling. We've done a show on hip hop and rap.
Yeah.
In the world of wrestling, we got a show coming out here pretty soon where we talk about the idea of a world champion and what does it mean in 2015. So hopefully you guys will check that out. And finally, if you're a sports fan, you can check out the Kings of Sport. It's myself and Marcus Vanderberg from Yahoo Sports, and every week we talk about sports. We talk about our lives. We talk about some of the ratchetness that goes on when it comes to the world of sports. So this week we'll probably be talking a lot about Kobe Bryant retiring after the season. We'll talk some NFL football. Unfortunately for the mates over there in the UK, we don't talk a lot of soccer or cricket. But yeah, Kings of Sport, you can find that on iTunes and Stitcher. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/The Kings of Sport. So yeah, that's where you can find me if you're interested in hearing more from me, because my ability is talking.
Yes.
And I use it well. I hope I use it well.
You definitely do. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to leave it you guys with Keep the Rebellion Alive.